Good afternoon and welcome to the third day of the Glee Garden Angels. My name is George Bullivant from Garden Forum, and those of you who don't know Garden Forum, we're a trade newspaper for the garden industry on the internet. As you go around Glee, you will see lots of new ideas, particularly in the innovator zone. But how many of these ideas will you see in years to come in garden centres? How many will actually become successful? And the answer, sadly, is not nearly as many as should do. The question is why, and ask the innovators and they'll say, well, the garden centres won't take it, we can't get anybody to listen to us, or all the myriad of problems they have. Talk to the garden centres and people like that to say, well, they're not in a format that we can really sell them. And the aim of the Garden Angels is to look at some of these products with the help of experts in the form of angels, explain what you need to do in order to turn a good idea into a successful business. Now, it is a competition, and at the end of each presentation, the judges will score each company, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But you can see there the scores from Monday and Tuesday, and at the moment in the lead we have Slug On in the lead, which also happens to be a new product winner with a score of 32, and we hope perhaps to have somebody who will challenge that from our companies today. So I think I won't go any further, but to invite the angels onto the stage and introduce you to the angels. First of all, let me introduce you to Sue Allen in the middle, who recently retired as Managing Director of the Millbrook Garden Centres, the Millbrook Garden Company, which she founded with her husband, Dick. She's still very enthusiastically involved in the garden industry. She's the immediate past president of the International Garden Centres Association. She's a great supporter of the charities in the industry and is pushing hard Green Relief Day, which, if you don't know about it, I'm sure you still will learn, because it's going to kickstart gardening in 2011.
Well.
On the left, we have Paris Nattar, who probably needs little introduction to many people. He's the founder of Gardman, one of the biggest companies in the industry now with a turnover over 70 million. He has sold the business, but I think he's particularly proud of the fact that for 8 consecutive years, he was voted by garden retailers as the company they most wanted to deal with. And then on our right, we welcome Andy Campbell, this is his first day as one of our angels. Andy, for the last 10 years, he's been one of the leading consultants in the industry. But before that, he spent 20 years as head of horticulture and garden centre trading in Homebase. So he knows the garden industry and he knows it from the side of the multiple retailer. So let's meet our first company who is going to present what they do to the angels. David Eaton, welcome onto the stage.
There you go.
His company is the Solar Company. And the Solar Company produces solar products that work right throughout the year for security, shed, floodlighting, and that sort of thing. He says he's got an improved technology which is more efficient than other technology. He's a rapidly growing business. I'm sure he'll tell us, but his sales are growing very fast. So without further ado, David, welcome.
Thank you ever so much. Yes, at the Solar Centre, we basically are specialising, like you say at the moment, on products that work in winter. So products which will perform well throughout the night, serve a purpose, even in low light conditions.
Just tell us a little bit more just about the range of products that you're selling and perhaps how long you've been in the market.
Okay, we've been established now for 5 years. We started off as an online retailer, and online retail was what we specialised in. The products we started with was, like I've shown, the angels are the fairy lights. Christmas lights, obviously you want them to work. We get early nights. It gets about 4 o'clock. The lights come on. You get home from work at 7, 8 o'clock. They're no longer on. It's like you don't get to appreciate them. Now, with our technology, we basically designed a way that the lights will work guaranteed for 10 nights, 8 hours a night, without any sun. And it's in that technology that allows us, even with the poor weather conditions in the UK, for the lights to continue working consistently. We then moved that on because there's a demand for other products like security lighting, pathway lighting, pavement lighting, that people wanted utilitarian products that work, products that were bright, served a purpose, but worked from the sun. So you had the convenience of no wires, can put them anywhere in your garden, however big your garden was.
And I understand that you've already selling successfully in other sectors. Where are you with your company at the moment?
At the moment, we particularly sell to the electrical industry. One of our first trade partners was Maplins. After Maplin, we quickly got CPC, because quite rivals in the industry, and they both saw that we did quality, reliable products. And with electricians, they're probably one of the hardest people to sell to because they're very much wire-based. But that went very well. We took a couple of years, but we got into John Lewis this year. And because of our dominance on the online sector, Amazon approached us and said they wanted to be suppliers of our goods too. So we're with them as well.
So you're now trying to get into the garden industry. What particular questions would you like the Angels to answer for you today?
Well, I find with retail in general, it's all about who you know and having the contacts. And if you know one name, you can then start building from that. We've done Glee for the last 3 years to try and get some names in the garden sector to get into the garden stores. But it's sadly an area that we're lacking in. We're in with a couple of local garden centres and a few garden centres online again. But the actual retail stores, I want to know, how do I get my products in front of the buyers in the garden industry?
Angels, so can we help? How does he get his buyers in front of garden centres? Paris.
Well, I think solar is a big enough area, a big enough category to enable you to, get a team of sales agents initially. If your offer is strong enough in its own right, if it's priced correctly, you should be able to get a small team of agents, but you could supplement that with your own selling activities. So I don't see that as being a problem in the way as it has been perhaps for some of the other entrants to this year's Glee Angels. But I'm actually quite interested in your business model because perhaps you could enlighten me, if you pardon the pun, on what it is exactly that differentiates your product from several other brands that are out there. I know that you're going for the sort of high-tech aspect, but one slight concern that I have is that you've got quite a big range. The range all comes from the same suppliers, more or less, the same types of suppliers anyway, in China that everybody else's comes from.
Totally.
And I know that there's only a certain number of things you can do to a solar light to make it better. One is the quality of the LED, the quality of the solar panel, the quality of the battery. Those are the three main areas you can influence. But I don't really get it in terms of what prevents anybody else from doing the same thing from the same types of sources. Could you enlighten us a little bit on that?
It's probably one of our downfalls and our upsides in the sense of we generally have double the capacity of the battery as other solar goods. We have double the solar panel strength of other solar goods. What the downside of that is in the summer you risk overcooking the batteries. So then you have to put an overcharge protection in there as well. So you've got the three components you've said, battery, panel, LED, but you've also got the electronical circuit board, which has the clever technology. Yeah. In the fairy lights you've got there, what they will do is the lux sensor, so the light sensor in the panel, if it's a miserable, overcast, black day in winter, it would tell the circuitry that it's not been bright enough to charge my batteries today. So because of that, the circuitry will then switch over onto a dimmer mode for the LEDs. So rather than putting a high current and a high amount of energy through the LEDs, it will put a low amount through, so they'll be dimmer. But the dimmer setting that they're on is comparable to all the other solar fairy lights that are out there. Yeah. It's the same sort of brightness. So,
and you're saying, David, that at the moment, even though you've got 100 odd products in your range, not all of them lights, I appreciate that, and given the relatively low volumes that you're selling because you're essentially online at them, or mostly online, that you can influence the specification of each different product to that degree with your Chinese supplier, can you?
Completely. We've got a full-time member of staff out in China who has visited us several times to understand what the quality of the solar centre is. We very much are aiming at the top end of the market, but we're trying to price ourselves at the middle end of the market so that the products are of the sort of quality people want to own, but are at a price that most of us can afford. And our member of staff out in China manages those factories for us, because you can't, just through a couple of visits a year, control factories. They'll deliver something, and then the next delivery will be of a substandard quality.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So what you're saying really is that the big point of difference is that in the winter you still get a good result.
Yeah.
If you have a whole stack of those on a shelf in a garden centre, that doesn't tell me that. And as a customer, I would walk past and just think, oh, it's another black box with some solar lights in it. What do you propose to do about telling the customer in the garden centre how good they are compared to others?
That's where we need help, and then we're feeding back from the few retailers we do have to ask them to tell us what can we do to get a message across. One thing that came from that is, on the new boxes, making these boxes a bit more obvious. The green boxes on the front, which is a quick guide to how many LEDs, will it work in winter, what's the panel strength, so that you've got a quick see it on the front of the box, that does work in winter. It does come down to people asking, people selling the product, because, like you say, that's the message we need to get across.
I think I would perhaps suggest that you could consider a standalone unit with perhaps some big point of sale above it, because with the best will in the world at Christmas time, the garden centre staff aren't going to be there specifically selling the benefits of that. So
to try and get a point of sale which really shouts
about
and
it.
puts the USPs. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to comment. I think you clearly know the technology behind this very well. I think Sue's point is very valid about shouting the message, because it's quite a complicated message to get across through the packaging. And I think, to me, the solar lighting market is very competitive, and there's a lot of entry level and mid market product out there. I don't doubt that the product is of a high quality and does what you say it does. I suppose my question, though, is what are your plans? Have you targeted specific customers that you really believe will be able to sell this product? Because I think just putting it on the shelf, supporting it with point of sale, this is a product that really needs the benefits to be sold quite proactively rather than reactively. And I'm interested to know whether you've got a target list of customers and you've got a clear plan about how you're going to sell that product out to the final consumer.
Knowledge of who does that in the garden industry isn't something which is a forte for me. It's a case of, I knew with John Lewis, when we targeted them, that there's a reputation of them having as many staff members as customers, in that it's very customer focused. I came from, I worked for Homebase as my first job, and I've come from that retail sector, and I understand that in that garden centre, DIY sector, the staff levels compared to customer levels aren't so high. So I don't really know if that exists, basically, in a garden centre environment. So I think, like Sue's point about making the product sell itself more is more what I need to do, and then get it in front of the customer and say, look, this is how it's going to sell, maybe.
That's good, but what I'm feeling, though, is if you can make a breakthrough with some key strategic accounts and prove that, because you're in the situation where it's volume versus value to drive cash gross profit, and I think if you can make a breakthrough by selecting key accounts and working very hard on those to get your product in, then you get some real hard evidence and it becomes a proven product in this sector, and then that will help you go forward with confidence to a wider marketplace.
What would those accounts be in the garden centre sector?
Sorry, I didn't...
In the gardening sector, what would those key accounts be, do you think?
Well, I think you need to do some
more research.
Some research to look at all the players out there, understand their offers fully, and then target those you really think will get behind the product and manage the self-service side of it, but also really proactively sell it through the team as well.
With key accounts, 'cause I know there's groups like buying groups, and I believe there's a Blue Diamond group, which are like the high-end collection of garden centres, and they're the sort of people that we would like to focus on. But also, I mean, it's one thing trying to ring them, but it's like getting the contacts. I mean, is there a way, because they don't know me, they don't know our products, they can see who we sell to, but we're not in garden centres. Is there some way that buyers like to be approached to say, I want to show you my product, I want to come and demonstrate my product?
I think that's, if I could come in here, because that's what anybody starting out in the industry has to start somewhere. And the best way of doing it is just being persistent and try and find original ways of putting yourself in front of the buyers. And there are lots of ways of doing that. You can, innovate. You can send them a beautifully wrapped product and say, put this in your garden and try that, and I'm going to call you next week. Lots of things you can do. Eventually, the persistence will pay off. So, I can't teach you how to sell.
No.
There's no magic to it, but you've just got to keep trying, keep phoning. Don't take no for an answer.
Yeah. See, I think maybe that's what I need to do, is more persistence, because I think I worry about to forcing myself.
Don't take no for an answer. Eventually, you'll build up a momentum, and it'll get easier and easier. If I could come back, David, on one thing. One of the things that I'd just like to explore with you is the pricing. Now, a number of the things you mentioned about the technical spec are obviously, something you know a lot about and you're working on. But I don't think that the cost of those improvements, enhancements that you're adding into the product are necessarily that expensive to achieve. And I'll give you an example. On your website, there's a product called a post light, which is a thin solar light with a solar panel on the top. Okay. And there's a set of 4. And I think that was selling on your website for £32.61. Maybe I'm wrong there, but it was something like that. Now, the market price for that in gardens is around £14.99. And you can go into Wilkinson's and buy it for £9.99. And whilst yours might be incredibly superior technically, we have to remember that solar lights are not lights to read by. They're solar lights to create an effect, an ambience in the garden. And I just worry that, making the bridge from a web-based business to a retail-based business outside of the retailers like John Lewis, who have got a clientele that can afford to pay the higher price, might be challenging. And I wonder whether you're able to address that issue, and also how you're going to balance that with your higher priced website. You've got most of your revenue coming out the website. You can't very well go out with the same product at half the price in a garden centre while selling it for double the price on your website. So that's going to be a transition that will be challenging, won't it?
That particular product isn't one of ours. We do sell a number of other products for other manufacturers on the website as well. Yeah. The closest we do to that set of 4 pack is a 2-pack, which is £29.99. Yeah. But that has 2 LEDs as opposed to 1 LED, so it makes it a little bit brighter. It's only the difference between a 3-watt light bulb and a 6-watt light bulb, so it's not massively different, but it's enough to make an impact.
Yeah, but I mean, the point I'm making is an LED costs... A quality one costs 20 cents, so...
But then what we do is, like I said, there's the panel and the battery, which is the bit that really jumped the price up. Yeah. And the overcharge protection doesn't cost anything, but it's the battery and the panel which really makes a difference. Plus also then, because we're increasing those factors, quite often it's a new moulding cost because it's not something they have as standard. And as time goes on and as the volumes do increase, I'm sure we'll be able to bring some of those prices down. but also it's the grade of stainless steel. A lot of these lights, they're not stainless steel, they're plastic with stainless steel colouring. We're using stainless steel, so it's got the weight, it's got the durability, and also we only use polycrystalline panels. We don't use amorphous on any of our products.
Yeah, but I thought amorphous, one of the benefits of amorphous was it was good in poor lighting conditions.
Yes, 100%. It works in poor lighting conditions, it will work indoors, it will work off a light bulb, but it's only 4% efficient.
Right.
Whereas a polycrystalline is 16% efficient.
Yeah.
So even in very low light conditions, the efficiency of the polycrystalline will work better than the amorphous. The big advantage of amorphous, though, is a lot of time people put them in a greenhouse or a conservatory or under a bush, and amorphous will charge like that. A polycrystalline has to have line of sight to the sun, even if it's cloudy.
Yeah.
Angels, I think we are come to the end of our time.
Already?
And now's the time for the Angels to think about their scores. I think you've heard some valuable lessons there.
Definitely.
First of all, that the packaging must shout out the reason why that product's got to be picked up against any other product that it happens to be sitting next door to. If you want to get into garden centres, you have to be really persistent, think of innovative ideas, and don't take no for an answer. And as ever, it's pricing. You know, pricing is always a barrier. So if I can start, we have our high-tech scoreboard up there, and our Angels have got the magic buttons to deliver the score. First of all, on the product itself, whether they think that the product is going to be successful. So, Paris, perhaps I could ask you to start the scoring on the product.
Yeah, you know, I think solar as a category is an important and growing one. I think it's shaken off most of its bad reputation of the early years in the 90s, and you know, over the last 5 or 6 years there have been some significant advances that you can find in most of the suppliers in the Far East. So I think it's a category that will do well, and I am impressed with David's technical knowledge. So yeah, I'm going to give it a fairly robust score with a 7.
Sue?
Yes, I wouldn't dare comment about the technical aspect, but I still think it's a good product. And if you can see your way round to getting that message over that it is a high-quality product, I'll give it a 6.
Thank you.
Andy?
Okay, I think in my mind, you lost me on the technical side, I'm afraid, but it's a high-quality product. If you're successful with the electricians and specifiers, then I'm in no doubt about that. You've been successful in getting it into John Lewis, and I hear many times garden centres saying we aspire to be the John Lewis of the garden centre world, so I think that's a good start. But if you're going to charge a premium, you've really got to make sure that the benefits are really there and really communicated loud and clear. Otherwise, you lose out on the value equation. It just looks 100% more in retail price, but only 50% better. And it's got to be the other way around. But overall, I'm very impressed. I'm going to give it a 7. Okay?
Thank you. Cheers.
So what does that give us halfway? Is that 20? Right, so equal top score for that. Now, the second round of scores for the judges is, they obviously like the product, but how likely is it going to be, with the current business plan, how likely is it to be successful in the garden market? Bearing in mind, you've been at Glee 2 years already, and it's still trying to get penetration. Andy, perhaps I could start with you this time.
Yeah, my feeling is that you need a very clear, documented business plan and a marketing plan. You need to identify who you really want to win over in the early stages. You need to do that well. You've got to research who the players are out there who will really get behind the product and sell these benefits. So I'm going to give that a 6.
Sue?
Thank you.
I should probably, having seen the administrator standing at the back, I should probably just push the Garden Centre Association at this point, because that is quite a good way of finding out who some of the top players are.
Good.
And, you know, if you were to become an associate member, then you have access to some of the really good garden centres.
Thank you.
But as you're going along at the moment, I'm going to give you a 5.
5.
Thank you.
And Gilly, wave your hand. Anyone wants to know anything about the Garden Centre Association? Speak to Gilly. Paris.
I've got two concerns, which I'm going to give you a softer mark than my first mark. The first concern is that I think to transition from a web-based operation into a retail-based operation, you do need to pay close attention to your retail pricing. And I'm a bit concerned about how you'll achieve that. And, secondly, it is a pretty crowded market there already. So breaking in, I think, might be, quite difficult. I'm not saying that you won't do it, but it's going to be hard, and you're going to have to really push hard on the sales and marketing front. And I think Sue's point is absolutely right on the packaging. You do need to make the packaging sell the product for you. So I'm going to give you a slightly more modest, but still not too bad, 4 points.
Thank you.
4. So what total does that give us?
Might make him
So that's 15. Is that 35? You are our new leader, so congratulations.
Thank you ever so much for your help as well.
Thank you very much. Now's the time to welcome our second company, Michael Messina, who is going to introduce us to the Slug Bell, which you can see on the table. This is a decorative device that holds slug pellets.
There you go.
Therefore, birds can't get at them and stops them dissolving in rain. So, Michael, welcome.
Good evening.
And perhaps you could start
Good
off
afternoon,
by,
even.
Perhaps you could just start off by explaining exactly how Slug Bell works.
The Slug Bell works basically with a similar product that we all know, which is a slug pellet. But instead of throwing them on the ground and they basically absorb water very quickly, they are concentrated in a little basket which I've designed there. And the yeast, which is in the pellets, the vapor slowly disappears from the actual bottom of the slug bell. Therefore, attracts the slugs 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The beauty of the slug bell is that the pellets don't get wet. So they will last about 8 weeks before you replenish them because they absorb moisture and they basically go moldy. You can water the garden, you can go away on holiday, it will still protect your garden. You can move it around after you localize the slugs in certain areas. In a certain area where obviously you've got the slug pot. I've just designed a smaller one which actually you can put in hosta pots or in smaller pots, so it will protect your garden all the time against the slugs. Basically, they will visit this once and that will be it. That's basically it. They won't find them scattered about. It will protect birds from eating them and picking them up as food. And also it will protect dogs, which consequently 200 die a year from metaldehyde poisoning. Basically, if it's suspended in the actual basket, the metaldehyde poison doesn't get into our water table, and which is a big problem at the moment.
And Michael, tell me, I understand you've started selling them already.
I have.
Tell me how you've got on.
I've got on very well. Like I heard Paris saying, you've got to be persistent. You've got to be a pushy person if you want to get somewhere. I've contacted stately homes, schools, garden centres, obviously. I've tried to approach supermarkets. I had a stand at Hampton Court Flower Show, and I sold 1,000 of these slug bells. They came across very well. They're lovely, attractive in the winter time as well, when everything else is desolate. Ladies like them. They're a present for under £10. They're an ideal present, and they last for 20 years because they're made of metal.
Well, I was just going to ask where they're made. As they are made of metal.
They are made
hand-painted.
Of metal.
Where are they made?
They're made in India, as it happens. They're individually hand-painted by, obviously, 9002 certified company, which I've been assured that it is.
And what are the questions you like the angels to answer for you?
Well, I think I want, like the previous gentleman here, it's basically the contacts, but I think I can research all that. It's just a case of having that one or two clients that will, basically will take it on board. But having said that, I've had an absolutely marvellous response to this exhibition, and I think it would just be a case of slowly but surely. It's just like a baby. You've got to crawl, then you start to walk, then you start to run. And I'm at the baby stage.
Okay, let's see what
Simple
the
as
angels think. Who's going to start? Sue.
Hello, Sue.
Hi, can I just ask you, have you established scientifically from how far away the slugs are attracted?
Well, a slug travels at least 4 foot to an object and 4 foot back. That's what is scientifically known as. So this will have a catchment of about 8 foot radius. So after about 3 or 4 days, when you localize a slug in a certain area, you can pick it up and move around. Ideally, if you have 3 or 4, it will work better in the garden for you. But to start off, if you're investing, say, £200 every 3 months in your garden with plants, £10 over 20 years is not going to make that much difference, I don't think. It's going to be a benefit to you.
You talked about the price just then. Have you had any resistance to that price
Not
point?
at all, not one. I've priced it to be competitive to what's already on there, but also this product is made of metal and it will last for 20 years, not for like a plastic which may deteriorate it will deteriorate in 3 or 4 years. It will look ugly. It will be discarded. But something like this will be attractive in the garden all the time. Okay. Paris.
On the price, Michael, I'm just a bit concerned that, even the smallest postage stamp-sized garden, by your words, will need at least 3 of these. So, that is a £30 investment, even for the smallest garden.
I understand.
It just occurs to me that if you really want this to be a volume item, and if it works, you say it works on a silo system rather than the spreading system that's recommended. So assuming it works, it's a huge market. But to get people to buy several, this is obviously a multi-buy product.
I understand.
It needs to be sub a fiver, ideally.
Sure.
2,993. You want to be doing packs.
Yeah. Like
packs of 3 or 4 for £9.99. And looking at it, it's a bit of metal work. I personally don't think it needs the hand painting. I know it looks pretty on display, but the hand painting isn't going to be seen anyway. When it's in amongst the foliage, that's going to be lost.
It can be pressed.
So, I would have thought this could be manufactured for under £1, landed, maybe as little as 70p, 60p. And if you could do that, you could then knock them out for £3.99, pack of 3 for £9.99.
Sure.
And I think you're then getting into the volume area that you need to be at. I worry about the price. I was wondering what your view is.
Let me just tell you, Paris, they are manufactured for less than that what you said, but it's the import duty, the obviously FedEx costs and the customs excise. That's what puts the price up to me. Then obviously when it's got to be repackaged, which I'm working on, that costs 80p at the moment. Yeah. But as I said, I'm in the baby stage, at the crawling stage. I will certainly grow and get advice and then improve the product as revenue comes in. I can't spend it unless I've got it, and that's how I work on it. And that's why I've grown to this stage in 8 months, slowly but surely. That's my opinion.
Okay, Michael, just one quick question, if I may, please. Who's buying this product currently? Because at the risk of making a sort of sweeping generalization, then it is actually a very feminine product. But in my mind, slug killing is quite a macho task. Okay, so I'm a bit confused about who you're targeting the product to. So I'd be interested to know what data you've got already.
Sure.
To help me.
Well, Andy, I'm targeting it obviously at general gardeners, ladies, obviously, that are impulse buyers as well. It will go in gift shops. It will go in, obviously, pet stores. Now, one thing that happened to me at the Hampton Court Flower Show, which I was taken back with, I had a gentleman that came on my stall and he was just picking it up, putting it on, looking at it, trying to take the rubber bit off. I found out he was a professor of neurology at London University, and he said, this is so good for the pet market. So there's another market for me. It's not just the gardening market, it's the pet market as well. So generally, it's that sort of product that we'll try and get into all markets. Now, killing slugs, I don't think we can kill them because research says that there's 20,000 slugs in any postage stamp garden. Only 5% are active and above 10 degrees. So it's a constant battle. they live to 6 years, they lay 400 eggs, so it's a constant battle. If they concentrate and something's working all the time, protecting the environment, protecting birds from picking up randomly, if it works all the time and you're going away, it's got to work. It's got to work, and it looks pretty as well.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, if I can just add, I'm with Paris on the perceived value side as well, because I think one of the things you'll find that goes on in buying offices, for example, is new product comes in, you'll hold it up and say to everybody who's listening, what would you pay for this?
Sure.
And I think from my past experience, if I were holding that up saying what would you pay for this, I think $3.99 and $4.99 is the kind of tops. So, but it depends on where. I'm the last person to want to down value markets. But if you're interested in generating volume and getting the throughput, then my thoughts were you need a 2-pack at $9.99. Interestingly, the header card is very large for the product, so you're actually wasting a lot of the retailer's vertical space. So I think even on that card you could get 2. Nested. So I think you've got to look at how you make use of the retailer's space as well.
Well, I said I'm looking at clam packaging as well. I'm looking at the packaging side of it because I said I need to probably put more information on the back of it, more awareness of towards pet. But as Paris said, if I can reduce the cost of making it initially by like a transfer printed on there, or made of, I don't really want to make it out of plastic, but if it's transfer printed, then it will reduce the cost, then it will become that sort of value. But as you say, the smaller one which I produced will be for the pop market, and it will reduce in price.
Can I just... I've got this pet hate, and it's about websites and spelling and typographical errors. Can I make a plea that you go back and re-look at your website?
Okay.
Because I really do think that if you don't get that right and people read it, they think, oh, that doesn't look very professional.
Okay.
So that's my first plea.
Okay, thank you.
And also, I'm a bit concerned about some of the claims that you're making about the number of dogs that have died and what have you. I spent a happy afternoon on Sunday looking up lots of information, and a lot of what you have claimed isn't actually substantiated. So I just think you need to be a bit careful of what you claim. But that was just a point I was making.
There is definitely 200 dogs a year. That's from actually the veterinary company. I went on their website, and that's why I'm claiming
that.
I wouldn't
claim
something.
I wouldn't claim
something
stories,
that I'm not sure about. I assure you.
You just
I wouldn't come here in front of you guys saying something like that unless I've actually lifted off or read about it. I assure you.
Let me ask the Angels a question, if I may. When you bring a new product like this to the market, you've got a choice of a number of channels. Is Garden Centres the right channel? Are there other channels that perhaps ought to be looked at for this product? Perhaps I could ask the retailers first.
I could really see it selling in one of these mail order brochures. I take on the point about the price. I think it's too expensive, and I see no reason at all why it has to be a pretty pattern. But I could see it selling in some of these mail, what are they called, Coopers of whoever, or I could see it selling in that. But I think it can sell in garden centres as well.
Thank you.
But not at that price.
Okay. As I said, I'm in the crawling stage at the moment, but at that price, they are selling well.
Okay, I mean, I'd endorse that. I think, to answer your question, George, yes, it could be a garden centre product, but at the right price. But I think the real issue is actually it's getting the message across. And to me, I think one of the things you need to do or need to consider is actually you're doing the right things with doing flower shows. But if you can create a demand through flower shows, through social media, getting people chattering and talking about it, then you're more likely to start pulling. If people are turning up at garden centres saying, "Have you got this decorative slug bell thing?" then that's going to pull. The demand is going to pull through the supply chain. But at the moment, I think it will always only be a relatively, low volume, once in a while purchase, rather than getting real volume behind it.
Well, Andy, the interest I had is from garden centres greatly here, obviously because it produces it. But as Paris have indicated, it's now in a company called Long Acres. It's been there 2 weeks, and they've already sold 200, approaching 200, and that's a fact. So it's a momentum. It's obviously wise words you said. I will take on board all these factors, but it is a garden centre product, I think.
No, I agree.
Thank you.
Angels, I think decision time for the Angels. I think you've had some interesting points raised there by the Angels. First of all,
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah, far away.
I'll give you a phrase that they say in Sicily. Per dirlo fare c'è un mare. It means to do something, say something, and make it is an ocean, and I'm swimming it. Okay?
Well, the Angels like they like the product, so I think you're swimming quite strongly.
One more thing.
No, I think that's it.
It's protected by my godfather, in case you want to know.
Think about the lessons that have come forward. Think about who you're targeting. Be absolutely clear who your customers are. Perhaps think about the retailer when you're doing the packaging and things.
Yes.
Think about the retail space.
I have to.
It is a garden centre product, but think about other channels as well, and perhaps mail order.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was key point is pricing, and I think all the Angels feel that it's perhaps too high price at the moment. And I would like to differ. I would like to differ from the Angels slightly and say some of them don't particularly like the patterning. I love it. So anyway, I know nothing. Let's find out the scores first of all on the product and whether this can be a successful garden product. Who's going to start? Sue, will you start?
Yes. I don't know how long it's going to go on being a successful product, but yeah, as I've said, I think it's going to work. So I'm torn. I would give it a 6 if it didn't have all those silly patterns on it, but I'll give it a 5.
Andy.
Everybody has lots of slugs. Everybody has a slug problem. There's clearly demand. It is a crowded market. There are 10 million different ways of killing slugs. Therefore, I think it has degrees of innovation and uniqueness that will stand out, but it does need to be strongly marketed, I would suggest. I'm going to give it a 5, okay?
Okay, thank you.
A second 5. Paris.
Yeah, I think it's obviously a very strong area. There's a big demand for slug problem-solving devices and materials. I would give it a stronger mark than this, except for the fact that in my own mind, I'm still not 100% convinced that the silo system of just putting 2 or 3 pockets of pellets in strategic locations works as well as what the manufacturers recommend, which is spreading. Now, I know Michael's saying, you're going to say that that's because, the manufacturers of pellets want to sell as much as possible. But I've just got a bit of a concern about that because several of them have been doing this for years, do believe that's the best way of distributing. But I take your point. Your point is that it works. I would expect you to say that it works, and probably it does. But I've just got a bit of a concern about that claim. But it is an important area.
Can I tell you how it came about this? Basically, I'm a gardener, and I used to spread pellets around.
I've read the website.
And one of them found its way in a lettuce. I ate it, and that's why I've invented this.
Yeah.
Because I hated poisoning the ground continuously, and they're dissolved after 3 days, and do it year upon year.
Yeah.
That's the
But
reason.
you're in a good area. There's going to be a demand for this product. So I'm going to go with my colleagues, fellow Angels, with a 5.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agreement between the Angels. I think that's 15, is it? And Angels, your view on it about turning into a successful business? Andy, would you like to start?
Yep, just briefly. My feeling is that there's a demand. You've got an innovative product. I think it needs more work. I think you need greater, if I might suggest, greater clarity in your mind about how you're going to attack the garden centre market, rather than a more scattergun approach. You need to identify key accounts, again, that you're interested in developing. I'm very pleased you've had a great show. This industry does need lots of innovation. More work on the business plan. I'm going to give it a 5. Okay?
Thank you.
Sue?
Yes, I think not only have you got Italian ancestors, I think you might have Irish ones as well. So give your customers a chance to get a word in edgewise, which I think will help. And I'll give you a 5.
Yeah, I think Michael's a good salesman. He's passionate about his product, and that's always a very
We've got to start somewhere.
Very good starting point. I still think quite a lot of work is needed on the product design and the costing and the pricing. I'm sure he'll get there eventually, but it is just a single product, and I would urge you to, I don't know how you're going to do it, but you need to proliferate the range, create a family to give it a better chance of success.
Lots of ideas.
I'm not going to go quite on the 5. I'm going to go with a 4.
Thank you.
Okay.
Spoilt the straight run of 5s. So that gives us a score, I make it, of 29. So many congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Now, before that completes the 6 companies that are presenting to the Angels, just before we present the award, I'm going to ask each of the Angels just to sum up their advice to anybody who is thinking of trying to bring a new product into the garden market. You might have invented a great product, but what else advice would they give to you to help you be successful? So perhaps who would like to start? Paris, would you like to start with your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I could reel off, the sort of key points of any marketing student's text. I won't do that. One of the things that I'm very conscious of, and I've seen time and time again, not just from entrants, but also within my own business with other colleagues' views, sometimes people get too wound up in the product itself and its innovation. They don't think enough about who's going to buy it. And they don't think about the fact that most people that buy the products are on a very limited budget. They don't have to buy that product. They probably don't really need it. They can survive perfectly well without it. And I'd like to see a much stronger sense of realism about what the consumer out there is really willing to pay for the product. So, I could mention other things, but for me, that seems to be a recurring theme.
Pricing.
Pricing seems to be completely out of kilter with where the volume is. Yeah.
Right. Sue, your thoughts?
Yes, I think we've seen a really nice range of products this year, but I think one of their weaknesses has been lack of thought about the packaging. I think sometimes they've been so eager to get that product out there that they haven't considered how that packaging will sell the product for them and get the message over of what its benefits are.
A lot of people don't realise that garden centres do not sell the products. You have to sell your own products from the garden centre floor. And the packaging and the display has to do that for you. So I think it's absolutely crucial. Sue, have you got another point you wanted to make? Or?
Well, I've already mentioned it, my little gripe about mistakes on websites.
Andy?
My one sort of parting thought is to be as clear as you possibly can. Write it all down in terms of what your marketing plan is, who your target customers are. If you have a plan coupled with the persistence that Paris mentioned, you're more likely to achieve it. So I think the real situation is be very clear about who you want to win over, okay? And then be very persistent and make sure you get them on board first. And then you can build, that gives you a much stronger foundation to build your business going forward.
So
okay?
Know exactly who you're targeting.
Yep.
And I think we can actually add to that a little bit from one of the companies we saw earlier on, which is make sure you know that before you invest too heavily in manufacturing the product, because you've got to know what you're selling and how you're going to sell it before you spend a lot of money making it. I think there are a couple of other points that came out that I'd just like to add. First of all, it is very difficult for a single product company to get into the market and get access to garden centres if you go your own. And you should think about alliances and allegiances and developing relationships with other companies. And the other thing is that a point that was raised 2 or 3 times is profit. And the advice from the Angels is Don't think about profit straight away. Get your product into the market first, whatever you need to do to get it in there, get a place for it, and then build in the profit afterwards. It's part of your investment to get the product into the market. Thank you all very much for listening. Now is our time to declare our winner. And I would ask perhaps if is our winner still here? David, are you still here? Yes. But could I perhaps ask the angels if they would stand and present this wonderful award to our winner? Sue, will you actually hold it and do the presentation? Have we got our cameraman here? So David Eaton of the Solar Centre.
Well done.
Many congratulations.
Well done, David.
Thank you.
Well done.
You are the Angel's Choice for 2011.
Well done.
Congratulations. There we go. Brilliant.
Yes.
The only thing remaining to say is thank you very much for the Angels for giving unique advice. It can only come from people who have got the experience that they've got. And thank you all very much for coming.